Tying another wet fly from Ray Bergman's book Trout. This is called the Gray Drake. It's a handsome little fly with some natural mallard flank in the tail and the wing, gray hackle for the throat, a white floss body, and a black floss rib. I've done a number of wet flies that have some sort of floss for the rib. I always enjoy doing those. I think they just turn out very handsome. That is the Gray Drake. I'll go ahead and get started tying. So I'm going to start the Gray Drake with my hook and the vise. This is a Mustad 3399 in a size 6, just a standard wet fly hook. Debarb that hook. I'm going to attach my thread. The Gray Drake has a white floss body. I'm going to start with a white thread. This is a Danville 70 denier in white so that I don't darken up that floss at all. Pretty straightforward little fly. The body is floss, so is the rib. Tail is just natural gray mallard flank. It's a natural mallard flank, as well as the wing, and the throat is just a gray hackle. So the tail on this is just mallard flank. I've got just a little piece that I've been working on here. Nothing really big. You want some that have defined tips a little bit more like this, that maybe are all kind of even. If you can, you don't need that many. I'd probably go about half there. And I'm just going to take those, strip them off, clump them together. I'm going to tie those in so they're about a hook length long. Now understand where my thread's at. My thread's right about the point of the hook. The end of the body is going to be down here right at the end of the shank, closer to the barb. So from where that sticks out at the end of the body here, I want it maybe about a shank plus the eye of the hook. So just keep that in mind as you're measuring this and tying that in, that you're going to want that. If I say I wanted a shank length long, there's a shank length from behind the eye of the hook to the end of the shank. If I tied that in right here, when I wrap down further, this is going to be too short. So that's why I generally measure from the shank to in front of the eye of the hook. That gives me just a little bit of leeway so that when I wrap that thread down to the end of the body to tie in the rib and the body, I then have a tail that is about a full shank length at least, maybe a little bit longer. I trim the excess here down almost the length of the body. Get some wax on my thread. The rib is a black floss. I'm using a Danville 4-strand Rayon black floss, but I'm only using 2 of the strands of this black floss. I'm going to tie that in. I'm just going to set it up and anchor that in on the far side of the hook. Pull that down so that it's inside the body. 1 wrap to secure it. And then I'll put in the body. The body is a white floss. I'm using a Danville 4-strand Rayon in white for this. This I'll bring up under the thread over to my side. Same thing, I'm going to pull that to the left. Got to be careful you don't pull your thread down like I just did there. Pull that to the left so that that end is inside the body. If you don't want to do it that way, you could also just trim the end off. Now I'm starting to wrap forward. A little bit more wax on my thread. I'm going to wrap forward, binding in all of that material along the hook shank to give myself a nice smooth underbody. Go back here. There's a few spots I missed. Got a little bit of gap in my wrapping in. Probably not that big of a deal, as the floss would bind that in as well. thread right at the end of the body. I'm now going to apply the floss body and the rib. Securing in the rib, the body is going to be done. I hope you noticed that when I was wrapping in that floss for the rib, first off I brought it around on my side and stroked that floss out real well so that I had all those fibers under the same tension. And then I twisted it up clockwise as I'm looking at it this way. I twisted it up this way clockwise, would be counterclockwise from your viewpoint, as I wrap that in, so you get a nice tight cord wrapping in as opposed to a flattened floss. So with that secure, I'm going to switch over to my finishing thread, which is a black thread. This is a Danville 70 denier in black. Some wax on my thread. Attach my thread right behind the eye. Start wrapping downward, trapping in the tag end as well as the white thread. Bring that down to the end of the head space where I'll tie in the throat. Now the throat on the gray drake is just a gray hackle. I would probably use some schlappen for this or something softer. I don't have any gray schlappen, but I do have a really nice gray hen neck here. Nice uniform gray, and has some nice wide feathers that have nice long barbs on it. So I'm going to peel off the fluff right here, trim away the rest of that. I don't need it. I'm going to go ahead and separate a couple of clumps here, get the tips even, and just peel that off. I'll set this down on my tying surface, and then I'll go to the other side of that feather, selecting a similar amount. I'll get those perpendicular to the rachis, even those tips up, peel that off. Then I will set that on top of the other one, matching up the tips, and I have the two of them right here together for a throat. If you had some schlappen, just use that. They're longer fibers and easier to work with, but this works just as well. I want the tips of the throat to be somewhere around the point of the barb. So past the point of the hook into the throat of the actual hook. A little pinch and loop to wrap those in. 2 or 3 wraps to secure that. And I'll trim away the excess. And then I'm going to come forward, smoothing that down, adding a little bit of wax to my thread for tying in the wing. Now the wing is just mallard flank, and there's a couple of different ways you could do this. I've shown a lot of different videos where tying these wet flies, you use mallard flank for the actual wing, and there's a number of different ways to do it. My favorite way to do it, if you have the feathers, is to get a right and left slip like this from the right and left feather, but you have to have both of those pretty good quality feathers to be able to do that. So that's how I'm going to do it in this one. Other videos I've shown where you could take a mallard flank where it's flat on top, similar on both sides, take the middle out, and then kind of fold it on itself to make a wing. But what I'm going to do is I've got my right feather here. I'm going to peel away the fluff here, and this inside part here would work well for some tails. Sometimes it's thick enough you might be able to get one slip of quality barbs out of there for a wing. But for this one, we're going to go with this side of the feather. Now, sometimes like this right here, when you try to zip this up, when you try to do this, it doesn't go together too well. Sometimes it just looks a little bit off. One thing you can do, you can steam these if you want, which will definitely help them. The other thing is, and I know you can't see this on camera, but you can exhale some of your air and in your lungs onto it, because it'll add heat and moisture. So if you just kind of exhale on it, and then you get that heat and moisture, and then it helps the barbules on there to realign, and then it helps the whole thing to zip up a little bit. I actually didn't have to do that because what I'm going to clip out is pretty close to the same amount. So I'm going to clip out a slip here for one side of the wing, and I'm going to clip out another section for the other side of the wing. I'm going to peel that off this side of the wing, and then this side I'm going to lay on top to match that down, peel that out, and then get the two of them together. As long as my tips and one edge are together is what I'm looking for. This one's a little bit wide on your side. You probably see I have a little bit more out on one side than I need. So I get the bottom edges even and the tips even. And then I can reach in with my bodkin and peel out some of those barbs. If this is too thin, you can actually even just put them back on the feather, cut out a little bit more. I'm going to tie this in. I want those tips to be about halfway down the tail. A little pinch and loop. Another one to secure that in. A couple more wraps to secure it. And we'll take a look, see how our wing is setting. It's pretty good. A little bit long. So I'm going to take that. Trim away the excess. I'll bring my thread up behind the eye of the hook, working backwards. I'm going to cover up any butt ends from the wing or the throat, shaping the head, making certain everything's covered. Everything is covered the way I want it. I'm going to flatten my thread and put in a whip finish. With that whip finish in, I will trim away my thread. my wing got a little bit canted in there. It's actually also part of the barbs are pushing it off to one side a little bit. That sometimes happens with the mallard flank. Now I'm going to put some head cement on here. These wet flies with the mallard flank wings, they look really nice in the vise, but really once this is in the water, after it's been fished for a while, as well as when you start catching fish on it, all of the barbules in there are going to separate, and it's not even going to look close to that good. They're going to flatten out along the back, and it's not going to look like this when it's in the water. It's all going to look pretty much down like this and broken up, and after you fish it for a while and even let it dry out, it won't bounce back to something that nice looking. So I'll come back in a moment and put a couple layers of clear lacquer on that, and then top that off with a black lacquer to complete our gray drake. Handsome little fly. I've done a number of them, of wet flies from the book Trout that have a floss rib in them. Always interesting to do those. Thanks for watching today. Thank you for joining me at the vise today. I hope you learned a new pattern, at least a tip or trick here and there. If you'd like to help Dress Irons, you can like, comment, share, subscribe, all those wonderful things for the video. You can also head out to dressedirons.com where you can buy flies, tools, stickers, and merch, or you can join a growing community over on Locals at the Dressed Irons Fly Tying Guild. You can also donate to Dressed Irons if you want through the link at the bottom of the description. I thank everybody for their ongoing support, as it really does help the creation of these videos. But what's important is to remember, only fly tying. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.